And then this stupid thing keeps cutting my hand.
3 hours later.
Can you move it along? I'm all out of time cards.
In today's video, I will be disassembling this Corvette steering column to replace the turn signal and try to fix some other problems. This video will be helpful for anybody with a GM or pretty much any tilt and telescoping steering column from this time period. They're all kind of the same layout. There's just a few differences, but you could kind of pick it apart. So I'm going to make this video pretty detailed. If you're having problems with anything in your steering column, this should help you out. So let's get started. Now, the problem that I have is that when you're turning left and you push it down, there's like no engaging click. Like, you have to like pull it all the way down, and it's not very smooth. So the first step of this is to pop the center cap off. There's just these little tabs holding it in. So you just gotta kind of give it a little bit of pop and force and it comes off. Now, all of this stuff is the horn assembly parts. So to get this off, you just take out these screws right there. Alright, so when you pull this off, you gotta be careful that you remember where this goes, because that contacts a little horn button in here. So you gotta make sure that you keep this, or mental note that you know where it goes. This is the telescoping feature right here. So when it's turned out, it locks, and when it's turned out, it's locked. So this is what I have to remove next. And this part will also come out. This is used to retain the steering wheel like nuts or bolts. I've seen people put these on upside down because they forget to put it in before this part, and that kind of defeats the purpose of why it's there. It acts as a spacer, and it's also supposed to hold these screws down. Before I continue to disassemble this, I got to mark this somehow, because I got to pull this. There's like a kind of a shell that goes over the column. So I'm going to put a piece of pinstriping tape down it so that I know where it is when I'm putting it back together. So I got these at Harbor Freight too. They were $5, I think. So, yeah. And it's that easy. So $5 for this little split ring thingy is worth it, because I've been using this a lot, and I've also used this for building my rocker arms, so it's worth it. This nut right here that goes down the center of the column, it's a 13/16 inch nut, and I'm just going to take that off real quick. I left the steering wheel on so that I can hold on to it and kind of get some leverage. Okay, so this is a Harbor Freight steering wheel puller. Now, this one's for tilt and telescoping steering wheels, so it comes with that deal also to compress the telescoping spring, and then that's the puller. So basically how you do this is you gotta look through here, and you gotta find like a bolt that threads into these two holes. So I'm gonna do that right now. So you get one of these threaded in pretty good, and then you stick the other one in with the tool installed. Oh yeah, she's coming. There we go. So now it should just come off easily. There we go. And so, looks like there's a spring in here too. Alright, so there's that spring that pushes tension on that. Bang. This piece right here is kind of delicate, so you gotta be really careful when you pull it off. Like, I can't stress how careful. It's like plastic, so you gotta be careful. Yeah, it's already broke. Basically what happened was I tried to use the tool the way it's supposed to be used, and it was just pulling this column out. Now the column only locks up with the screws in there because it presses on something on the inside and lets it not move. So I put that screw back in with the washer with this thingy to compress it, and I tightened this down a bit till it, locks up on there and compresses this plate down. Now I just gotta remove this clip, so I'm just gonna use this screw screwdriver to kind of pop it out. So now this plate should just come out like that. Okay. So this bit has a little bit of grease on it, so I don't want to set it down. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys how this turn signal mechanism works. Sorry. Okay, so this thing right here is where the turn signal comes from. So there we go. So that's no turn signal on, and you can see how it's like in the middle, and then that's turning right, neutral, and turning left. You gotta pull it way down, and it barely clicks in. So we're gonna fix that. And the high beam is when you pull this lever back and it clicks. So that's also probably smoother. So this whole is all sloppy and stuff. So when we put this new stuff in, it should fix all that stuff up. So I'm gonna start pulling this turn signal assembly out. I'm gonna start taking this apart. I think this bolt right here is for the handle. So I'm gonna start off with that. So the handle's disconnected, but it doesn't come out. So I'm gonna continue pulling this stuff out. I think it's just these 3 screws. You gotta unplug that right there. That deal, it's underneath by the steering column. That's all the system stuff. Now, you gotta tie some fishing line or some type of rope to the wires so that when you pull it through, you could tie the fishing line to the new wires and pull it back through, because that's to pull all the way through the steering column, which is kind of difficult. So I'm gonna unplug that and we're gonna start pulling that through. Alright guys, so I got this spool of fishing line tied to the bottom of the harness. I just put a whole bunch of just knots in it so it doesn't come untied. Now I'm gonna pull this through and kind of try to finesse. Alright guys, so I got this spool of fishing line tied to the bottom of the harness. I just put a whole bunch of just knots in it so it doesn't come untied. Now I'm gonna pull this through and kind of try to finagle it. Guess what else is hooked up to here? El Hazardo, bro. What? Okay, so now I'm gonna go back down to the bottom and try to mangle it back down the steering column. Okay. Oh man. Who would have known this project would have been so fun? Right?
Oh, jeez.
1 hour later.
I just don't know what it's catching on.
2 hours later.
And then this stupid thing keeps cutting my hand.
3 hours later.
Can you move it along? I'm all out of time cards.
So, as you can probably tell, I have the turn signal switch assembly in the column. Now, the last clip you seen was me struggling to get that in. That took me like a few hours that night and the night's rest to figure out what I wanted to do. So, I didn't get a video of it, so I'm going to do a little drawing. So it's going to be drawing time with Sam. So let me get some paper and I'll show you what I did. So here's the housing. That's this thing right there. And then you got all this junk comes down and it's like like that, and this is all parts. So this is the area you have to work with. It's more like that. So that's the area you have to work with, okay? And now the wires are supposed to go through a zone right here, but there's something blocking it up in the front. So they have to go down that way, and this is a side view. There's that bracket that holds the steering column up. It goes above that and it pops out in a little slit right here, and that big harmonica connector pops out right there, or at least it's supposed to. Now there's a down in the column, here's another drawing. That's the housing. And then this is the column itself. There's a little, for some reason, there's like a raised block down there that sticks out that keeps the connector from going past it, and it keeps it from coming out where it needs to come out. Now, when I was pulling it out, I also had this problem where the connector would get snagged and it wouldn't pop out. I tried taping it, pulling it. So I just ended up cutting the wires, yanking it out, feeding a fishing line through it with a coat hanger. And so I've been trying to get it through that top hole where it came out, but that was not working. So what I did was, so here's the bracket. It comes down like this, like that, and your steering column hangs in it. So the housing comes down underneath the bracket, and it leaves a little kind of like pocket right here. And there's no interferences between the front and the back. So, and then here would be like that little block, and then this is where I needed to be, right there. So, trying to get up here, you kind of have to go around the block and pop it up, and it's really difficult when you're not even touching it. So, my fishing line broke, so I tried this, is I just stuck it down right as far bottom as I could go, and just pushed it down, it popped right through the bottom. So, I'll show you that, but, so the wires are just popping out the bottom. I'm pretty sure it's the same length that'll reach the connector and mounting point. So, I mean, I'm gonna have a box right up here, so it's not, I'm gonna like put my thing back in. You're not gonna see it, so it doesn't really matter as long as it plugs in. I'm good with it. So you can see where the wires come through. They were supposed to come through up past that bracket up on top, or right in that little crack up there. That wasn't happening, so I just fed them through the bottom. It was a straight shot. So now this little connector down here, I'd have it taped up, bolts into that, and it hangs on the column right there, on that mounting point. So I think I have plenty of like extra stuff that it'll fit, so I'm gonna do that right now. So when I was putting this back together, I figured out the lock and stuff wasn't working, so I'm probably gonna splice this video back in, but I had to start taking it apart again, cause the little lock pin right there is not locking when I'm turning the wheel. So I think the spring came off, and the buzzer's always going off. I unplugged it so the buzzer won't go off, but the buzzer for the ignition key, it's like there's a key in it all the time, so the buzzer's always going off. So I'm gonna take this apart, show you kind of how to get the ignition out and stuff, and also to get this little cover off, because I was looking all over to figure that out. I had to figure it out by myself. So I'm just gonna pretty much, this video is gonna be a full steering column teardown pretty much. So we're gonna get started on tearing this stuff apart. Next step will be to take out this, and this, and you gotta use a big screwdriver. They are very tight, so. Alright, so now that all that's off, you gotta get a little wrench or pliers to kind of take this turn signal lever out. I got the tilt lever out. It just looks like that, just threads in. Alright, so this little plastic cover, why would you want to get this off? The reason I had to get it off was to get a closer look at this turn signal dimmer switch mechanism. Now, you could also use it to get a look at this lock pin, which is where I messed up before. I messed up that lock pin when I took it apart. And how you get that out, because you see how the housing's loose now? So how you get that out is you have to pull the ignition out, which is, you got to pull this dimmer switch out. There's a spring, be careful, da 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 da. Okay, there's a little slot right there, and there's a little pin that you press in, and you pull out on the ignition cylinder, and it pulls it out. Now you don't have to pull it out all the way, just enough to clear that little tumbler in there and pull it out. So I will do that right now. Grab this, pull that out. Alright, so I was having a bit of trouble getting the spring out for the dimmer. Right there, the buzzer. So it comes out from the back too. But I pulled the ignition out a bit, Now this is loose and it can pull forward. So this is how you get that little plastic bit off. That cover, you just pop it off. And then you can access your, let me get some pointing out. You can access, this is for your high beam right here. This is your cruise control wire, ignition stuff, and I need to fix that lock because I messed it up somehow. So I'm gonna fix that, fix the buzzer, and we'll get this stuff all figured out. So, it is all disassembled. I just wanted to show you what this looks like. So in here, this is how your turn signal works. Sometimes these break, but they're very hard to find. So don't pull your ignition all the way out. And that's where the buzzer goes in right there. And this is part of your ignition. That's the thing that your ignition rides on right there. So yeah, and then this is the ignition. This is the spring that works that little pin, which is the locking pin. This spring is supposed to go in this hole, so it fell out somehow. I have no idea how. So it's because it's supposed to push that spring in, and it's not. So I'm gonna have to fix that. Make sure this doesn't fall out. There's a solenoid down there. If it does fall out, it's gonna be dark. But there's a solenoid down there. Just chase this little rod all the way down if it falls out. But you'll feel it kind of click in there. So yeah, so I'm gonna fix all this stuff up. So now that I have everything back assembled, I'm going to make this turn signal work, and I'm going to test it out before I reassemble everything. Alright, well it looks like it works. I'm going to go test the blinkers, the actual blinkers. Alright, so that blinker's working. Oh, it stopped blinking. What's that about? See that? I don't know why they stopped blinking. I think that's a feature. That's odd. I heard something about blinkers doing that. Let's see if they're off. Off, okay. Let's try the left again. Okay. Seems like it's doing the same thing on both sides, so it like blinks, 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 stops. Blinks, blinks, stops. Okay, well, let's check the front too. Yep, blinker's going. That's weird. I've never seen it do that before. I mean, I've never seen the blinkers on before, really. So let's try the other side. Blink, blink, blink. Stop, blink. Okay. So I'm going to install the hazard beam, and then we will see if the hazard work. Okay, so I got the hazards on. They're working on the dash. Let's check it out back here. There we go. Hazards are working. Yeah, I've never seen the blinkers working before, because every time I want to see if the light systems are working, I just use the hazards, which could be a good idea, could be a bad idea. I don't know. Let's see the front. Oh, my camera zoomed in a little bit. There we go. So, hazards, side markers, good. Other side marker, good. Let's check the back ones. I think these might just be reflectors. Yeah, those are just reflectors. So, yeah, gotta continue reassembly on this thing. Let's see if I can do it with my hand. Here you go. oh. A little harder, come on. Oh, yeah. Okay, you got it. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Mom. Thank you to the help of my mom, I got that clip in. Now, I think this is as far as I can go for today, because I need to get that retainer pin, and I don't have that yet, so it'll be like a week. It'll be a second for you guys, so. Okay. So thanks to my mom, we got that clip in, so now the column doesn't fall out. I can't go any farther today because I have to put the retainer thing in, so next week I'll come back. It'll be a second for you. Alright, so I got this clip that came in yesterday, so I'm gonna install this real quick. And if I remember, I think it goes in like such. Yeah. Okay. All this clip does is keep the horn from always going off, because there's these little contacts right here. So that's what that does. So now I'm just gonna replace these washers and rubber thingy. I don't know what that is, but put them back on. Alright, so I got the steering wheel. Now we're gonna put this back on. So before I took it off, I put this tape on here so I could line it up with the tape that's down here. And we're gonna do that right now. Okay. Alright, that's to keep the nut from backing off, and when you're driving your steering wheel falls off, so that's an important little piece, so don't lose that one. You gotta put this on before you put this on. So I've seen people put it on, like they have this on and then they put this on afterwards, but the whole point of this is it's a spacer, but it's also meant to hold the actual steering wheel screws in. You see how it covers all the screws, so those don't back off either, and your steering wheel doesn't pop off. So be sure to put this on first, just remember that. Okay, so you're going to want to put the steering wheel in the full lock position right there. And you're going to get a big old Phillips head right here that fits in that shebangy deal right there. Now you're going to tighten it down. Actually, yeah, tighten it down. Good amount, right there. Okay, so the steering wheel doesn't move. It's locked. That's the locked position. Now you're going to get a smaller Phillips head screwdriver that fits in these, and there's going to be two sets of holes that line up. Some of them won't line up, some of them will. So you're going to put it in the ones that do line up. Okay, and you're going to want to get that nice and tight. You don't want to strip anything though, so you know, the usual. So I got that on there, and now you can see that this little bezel doesn't move. Steering wheel's locked, and then when I turn it, lock it, and it's locked. So that's how you get this to be set up. If you're having a problem with just this, you could just take this horn cap off, take all this stuff off, and just tighten that one turn and then put the screws back in, and that'll fix your steering column issues. Okay, so now the last step is to put the cap back on. There's these little notches, and those just correspond with these notches as well. So there we go. Steering wheel is back together. Let's zoom out. steering column is all done. So, this video is probably a little longer and more boring than the rest of my videos, but I made it because I know a lot of you guys with old cars have problems with electronics in their steering column. So I was making it just to help some of you guys out. I hope you found it useful. If you liked it, please leave a like. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. If you aren't subscribed, please consider subscribing. And stay tuned for more Corvette videos coming soon.